Opportunities don't come along very often in Formula One. That's why the biggest bombshell over the summer break was Oscar Piastri publicly rejecting Alpine. Now, an insider has spoken about exactly why he chose McLaren over the team that already invested in him. Plus, what did Piastri say about the situation in an exclusive interview? Stay tuned, because all of that is coming right up. First up, Oscar Piastri's contract drama. We all watch Formula One for the driving, the competition, and the strategy between teams. But a lot of the strategy actually goes on between lawyers and managers. The latest contract drama with Oscar Piastri has reminded us of this. If you haven't heard of Oscar Piastri yet, let us quickly get you up to date. He's a young Australian driver who has long been tipped as the next big thing. His junior career is already as impressive as they come, having won both Formula 3 and Formula 2 world titles. These series are used to foster upcoming Formula 1 talent, and all eyes have been on Piastri. Until recently, it was assumed that he would be making his debut with Alpine. He was part of the Renault Sport Academy and had already tested for Alpine in the past. But when Fernando Alonso backed out of signing a new contract with the team to flee for Aston Martin, Piastri denied that he would be taking the Spaniard's place. Instead, he would be going to McLaren. All of this led to chaos in the drivers' market, with Daniel Ricciardo officially losing his seat at McLaren and a big question mark over who would be replacing Alonso at Alpine. To say that Alpine's team principal Otmar Szafnauer was angry would be an understatement. Szafnauer said that he expected more loyalty from Piastri and even accused Alonso and Piastri's manager Mark Webber of colluding against him. Next, sponsoring young drivers. Piastri may end up driving for McLaren next year, but his actions could have big consequences for future drivers looking to get their foot in the door. Formula One is the most expensive sport on earth, and to get there, you either need to have a ton of money or sponsorship. It's been reported that to race a full season at F2 can cost as much as $3 million for a driver without any backing. That's part of the reason that Alpine is so angry at Piastri. Otmar Szafnauer has estimated that they've already invested millions and millions of euros to get the Australian ready for Formula One. Piastri was signed with the Renault Academy in 2019 and went on to win F3 and F2 the following years. Alpine also ran 7 independent tests, which meant organizing a car, mechanics, teams, and logistical costs. All of this was provided on the assumption that Piastri would be helping them win trophies one day. So you can understand why Otmar feels a little betrayed. He said in the past that Alpine would be seeking compensation for these investments, but the fallout could be much bigger than Piastri. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff revealed that his team have hired more lawyers to make sure they avoid ending up in a similar situation. Wolff said that if Piastri's case has set a precedent for getting out of contracts, then Mercedes would have to reevaluate their sponsorship of junior drivers. Mercedes has financed young drivers like George Russell and Esteban Ocon. So far, they are both on track as good investments, but who knows what could happen now. And now, Alpine lose their case. Okay, so there are a bunch of different contracts and no one could decide which one is more important. It was always going to come down to who had the better lawyer and if Alpine left any holes in their contract for Piastri to escape through. Well, that's why the Contract Recognition Board, or CRB for short, was set up in 1991. Back then, the big drama was Michael Schumacher signing with Benetton after already agreeing to drive for Jordan. Lucky for Schumacher, he was able to wiggle his way out and ended up winning 2 world championships with the team. Piastri is hoping that his saga will end up with his own world championship too. The CRB was tasked with deciding whether Piastri's Alpine contract was strong enough to keep him or not. Then, during the Dutch Grand Prix, Piastri got the good news that he had been waiting for. The CRB announced their decision that the only valid contract was Piastri's deal with McLaren. So, that's the end of that, right? Well, there could be one more obstacle for Piastri, depending on how hard Alpine wants to fight for their former driver. Last month, Otmar Szafnauer said that it was 90% certain that he would be taking the case to the High Court, regardless of what the CRB decided. Then again, we have seen this threat before. When Mercedes lost the Drivers' Championship last year under controversial circumstances, they also threatened to go to the High Court. But just how angry is Otmar? Coming up, what did a Formula 3 driver hear about Alpine betraying Piastri? And what did Piastri have to say about his F1 career? So don't go anywhere. Next, Alpine did not deliver. Alpine are currently 4th in the Constructors' Championship behind the Big Three and still ahead of McLaren. Their race pace has been competitive and all signs point to the team only becoming stronger. So why wouldn't he want to join them for 2023? Well, now Juan Manuel Correa, who is an F3 driver, has shared some insider info. The young Ecuadorian shares the same physiotherapist with Piastri and said that from what he knows, Alpine are to blame for the entire thing. Correa told Sky Sports that Alpine had been using Alonso and Piastri against each other to try and sweeten their own deal, but in the end, it backfired on them. He said they didn't give Oscar what they had promised, and any driver in his position would have done what he did. If Correa is telling the truth, then Alpine have made a huge mistake. Piastri is the most highly sought-after driver in the business. Maybe that's why Otmar is so angry, because he's the one to blame. Now, how Alpine lost their star driver. With so much talk about him, what does Piastri have to say for himself? In an exclusive interview, he explained exactly why he chose McLaren over Alpine. Talking to Formula One's official magazine, he said that Alpine were never very clear about his future place in the team. Alpine were publicly committing to giving Fernando Alonso a position for the next 2 or 3 years, so Piastri felt that he might not be their #1 priority. On the other hand, he thought that McLaren was a great opportunity, and they were straightforward about what they wanted to do with him. If he had any doubts, then the way that Alpine released a false statement about Piastri driving for them in 2023 put them to rest. The Contract Recognition Board confirmed that Piastri had signed an agreement with McLaren in July this year, and Alpine were aware of that. So there were potential legal implications if he didn't publicly deny the announcement. Piastri is still Alpine's reserve driver for the year. Yeah, that's right. Imagine having to go to work the next day after your colleague had publicly embarrassed the team. Piastri said that he is happy to carry out the rest of his responsibilities with the team, but is also aware that the decision isn't up to him. He also took the opportunity to say that he was thankful for his time with Alpine, but it's safe to say that there might be a few awkward moments at the office for the rest of the season. Now, Piastri's future in F1. After it was officially confirmed that Daniel Ricciardo would not be driving for McLaren next year, the road has been cleared for Piastri. Finally, McLaren have been able to announce that Piastri will be replacing Ricciardo for the 2023 season, and McLaren are keen to get started. Team principal Zak Brown has asked for Alpine to release Piastri early so that they can put the whole situation behind them. He said people must want to be with their team and vice versa to have a productive environment. It's no surprise that Brown wants to get going as soon as possible. He has forked out a massive $21 million to terminate Ricciardo's contract early. That is how badly they're willing to get a fresh driver in their car. Brown has been more than happy with Lando Norris, but he said that Ricciardo fell short of the team's expectations during his time there. The only standout moment came with a victory at Monza last year, but other than that, the Honey Badger has lagged behind his younger teammate significantly. With Zak Brown pushing for Piastri's early release and Ricciardo taking a big payout, we might not have to wait until next year to see the young driver in action at McLaren. But considering that just a week early, Brown was taking shots at Otmar Szafnauer's credibility, it doesn't look too likely that Alpine will be doing any favors for their driver's new team. Do you think that Oscar Piastri is making the right decision by signing with McLaren? And is this the end of the line for Daniel Ricciardo? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.